Several new developments in South Suburban Dalton today. First, the state comptroller has suspended some payments to the village because it has failed to follow the law by providing financial.
The unfolding drama in Dalton, Illinois, has captured national attention, unfolding like a sensational soap opera rather than the day-to-day workings of a small-town government. At the center of this political theater is embattled Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose actions have not only drawn local outrage, but also global scrutiny. Henyard's tenure as mayor has become a case study in power plays, controversies, and a dizzying mix of audacity and drama, reminiscent of fictional dictatorships in the most outrageous political stories. From bold displays of unchecked authority to alleged efforts to humiliate her own constituents, the narrative has taken twists and turns, each more shocking than the last. Henyard's leadership, marked by behavior likened to a diva on a global stage, has shattered traditional norms of political decorum. Her approach to governance has left the town of Dalton reeling in disbelief and frustration, with many citizens scratching their heads at the brazen and theatrical decisions made under her leadership. Critics have pointed to Henyard's increasingly dictatorial style, which has seen the suppression of dissent, bold claims of dominance, and unapologetic actions that seem to defy logic. While some admire her resilience in the face of intense scrutiny, others argue that her actions speak to a disturbing lack of accountability. Allegations of retaliatory shutdowns, excessive spending, and an insular approach to governance have drawn widespread criticism. The situation took a dramatic turn when accusations of police misuse surfaced, with claims that Henyard used local law enforcement officers to intimidate rivals and silence critics. This fueled the narrative that her administration is more concerned with consolidating power than addressing Dalton's pressing challenges. Further compounding the scandal are allegations of financial mismanagement, which have left the town in a dire fiscal situation. As residents grow increasingly vocal in their dissatisfaction, the atmosphere in Dalton grows thick with tension. Many who once supported the mayor now grapple with disappointment and a deep sense of betrayal. Henyard's leadership journey is a cautionary tale about the fragility of small-town democracy. When leaders stray from principles of transparency and service, the results can be devastating. As Henyard clings to her position, her critics argue that her focus has shifted from effective governance to political survival, turning every decision into a chess move. This reality has cast Dalton as a symbol of what can happen when ambition overrides responsibility. The town, once a quiet suburb, now finds itself embroiled in controversy, with the people of Dalton grappling with the divisive consequences of a leader who seems intent on securing her own future at the expense of the community. The drama has only escalated as rumors of an imminent arrest warrant for Henyard began circulating, further heightening the stakes. Speculation runs rife about how a small-town leader, once heralded as a symbol of change, has reached the brink of legal disaster. This has only fueled questions about what this will mean for Dalton's governance, and what, if anything, remains of the trust between the mayor and the people she serves. Henyard's behavior has ignited national debates over the abuse of power, governance failures, and the role of community trust in democratic leadership. Amidst the scandal, Dalton's essential services have taken a back seat. As the town grapples with financial strain, legal battles, and political turmoil, city council meetings have become a battleground for finger-pointing and accusations, rather than a forum for constructive solutions. Henyard's once brazen assurances of control now seem increasingly precarious, as investigations into her administration intensify. The rumors of an arrest warrant have turned the situation into a waiting game, as residents, journalists, and political observers alike speculate about the outcome of the investigation and the future of Henyard's administration. The situation has sparked widespread public outrage. Allegations of lavish spending, misuse of funds, and administrative chaos have further eroded public trust. What was once a promising career now seems to be unraveling, as Henyard's reliance on a tight-knit group of allies, including her once loyal assistant Keith Freeman, has become a key element in the ongoing scandal. Freeman, once a trusted confidant, has turned whistleblower, claiming that he was intimately involved in the administration's financial mismanagement and other questionable activities. His decision to speak out has provided crucial evidence that paints a damning picture of Henyard's leadership. The story of Henyard and Freeman's falling out has become one of the central plot lines in the ongoing drama, as Freeman's revelations cast a long shadow over Henyard's carefully constructed image. Henyard's meteoric rise to power seemed almost too good to be true. As the first female mayor of Dalton, she represented a new beginning, young, ambitious, and ready to break barriers. Her early promises of transformative change for the community resonated with residents, who hoped for a fresh direction. However, as the old adage goes, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Henyard's once promising leadership now appears to be a stark example of this truth. The cracks in her administration, which once went unnoticed or were easily dismissed, have now become glaring and impossible to ignore. The signs of trouble first emerged in whispers about Henyard's lavish spending. Reports surfaced of her indulging in luxury SUVs, first-class flights, and high-end dining, all funded by taxpayer money. Despite murmurs of discontent from residents, Henyard pressed forward, confident in her ability to control the narrative and avoid scrutiny. She even hinted at plans for a second term, convinced that her charm and political maneuvering could sweep minor issues under the rug. However, Henyard's reliance on Freeman to manage the less transparent aspects of her administration would ultimately prove to be her Achilles heel. As suspicions about the financial mismanagement grew, Freeman's role became increasingly central to the growing scandal. Freeman's loyalty to Henyard had shielded her from public criticism for a time, but as his involvement in questionable activities became apparent, so too did the unraveling of Henyard's control. The first significant rift came when Freeman, once a close ally, began to distance himself from Henyard and eventually became a whistleblower. This shift marked the beginning of the end for Henyard's once unassailable political position. Freeman's decision to speak out has transformed the drama, turning him into a key player in the narrative. His claims of mismanagement, extravagant spending, and dishonesty have provided investigators with the ammunition they needed to launch a formal probe into Henyard's finances. The whistleblower's revelations, combined with Henyard's initial silence and subsequent public attacks on Freeman's character, have only fueled the controversy. Henyard's attempts to shift blame onto Freeman, suggesting that his actions are the result of personal grievances, have done little to quell the growing backlash against her. In fact, her refusal to take responsibility for the growing scandal has only intensified the perception that she is more concerned with self-preservation than with the well-being of the community she was elected to serve. As the investigation into her administration continues, Henyard's once loyal supporters are turning on her, disillusioned by her lack of accountability and the evidence of corruption that has come to light. Dalton, once a relatively quiet suburb, now finds itself in turmoil. What began as a promising leadership opportunity has devolved into a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and ambition. The people of Dalton, who once hoped for a better future under Henyard's leadership, now find themselves grappling with the consequences of misplaced trust and mismanaged resources. Public confidence in Henyard has reached an all-time low. Residents feel betrayed by the person they once believed would lead Dalton to prosperity. Her bravado, once seen as a sign of confidence and determination, is now viewed with disdain. Henyard's refusal to acknowledge fault or offer solutions has only worsened the perception of her administration as one ruled by arrogance and self-interest. Despite mounting evidence of corruption and mismanagement, Henyard continues to frame herself as a misunderstood visionary, unfairly targeted by disgruntled employees and political rivals. Yet, with each new revelation, Henyard's credibility erodes further. Her refusal to take responsibility for the growing scandal has led many to conclude that she is unwilling or unable to rise to the responsibilities of her office. The drama surrounding her administration now seems to be reaching its inevitable conclusion, as the weight of public dissatisfaction, financial strain, and legal battles closes in on her. For the people of Dalton, the situation has become more than just a political crisis. It is a reflection of the failure of leadership and the consequences of allowing unchecked power to fester. As Henyard's tenure continues to unravel, residents are left to wonder what comes next for their town. Will they be able to reclaim their community from the whirlwind of controversy, or will Dalton's descent into chaos become a permanent part of its story? The situation in Dalton remains in flux, with no clear resolution in sight. The drama continues to unfold, leaving residents and observers alike to ask the same pressing question: what happens next? As the investigation into Henyard's actions intensifies and the legal consequences mount, the answer to that question may soon become all too clear. Keith Freeman was once the shadowy backbone of Dalton's administration, a loyal right-hand man whose commitment seemed unshakable. However, his cooperation with federal authorities is now proving to be the decisive blow in unraveling a once impenetrable house of cards. For months, Henyard, the central figure in this drama, appeared untouchable, projecting authority and a carefully crafted image of leadership. But as cracks began to show, it became clear that something far more insidious lay beneath the surface. Financial records, credit card statements, and a long list of extravagant expenses have come to light, revealing a disturbing pattern of abuse of power. For months, lavish spending was excused as part of Henyard's duties, with first-class flights justified as necessary for attending important conferences, high-end hotel stays presented as required accommodations for key summits, and luxurious dining experiences framed as opportunities to discuss critical issues. These expenditures were hidden behind vague descriptions that downplayed their extravagant nature. But as the bills accumulated and were scrutinized, the pretenses started to crumble. Public funds that should have been used to help a struggling community were siphoned off for personal indulgence. What was once seen as ambition-driven leadership was exposed as reckless extravagance at the expense of those Henyard was meant to serve. Enter Keith Freeman. As a central player in this unfolding scandal, Freeman's decision to break his silence has transformed a local controversy into an existential threat for the leadership he once fiercely supported. Freeman was not only privy to every significant decision, but reportedly enabled and sometimes facilitated the questionable actions now at the heart of the investigation. His cooperation with federal authorities marks a major turning point in the drama, giving investigators access to a trove of incriminating evidence, including emails, memos, and first-hand accounts that expose a pattern of corruption once shielded by plausible deniability. Freeman's revelations paint a damning portrait of how public resources were diverted to fulfill personal whims. Private jets were hired under the guise of emergency travel, extravagant gifts were disguised as tokens of appreciation, and expensive retreats were billed as team-building exercises. Freeman's testimony is bolstered by a collection of incriminating documents that add irrefutable weight to his claims. What was once speculative is now presented as undeniable fact, and those implicated find themselves running out of excuses. The fallout is reverberating far beyond the halls of government. Residents of Dalton, many of whom have watched vital public services deteriorate while the cost of living rises, are furious. Roads remain unpaved, schools are underfunded, and basic utilities are neglected, even as public funds were allegedly diverted to fund personal luxuries. The scandal has galvanized a community that feels deeply betrayed, and protests have erupted as demands for accountability grow louder each day. For Freeman, his decision to cooperate is as much about personal redemption as it is about seeking justice. In interviews and depositions, he has admitted to feeling complicit in the deception, but now claims that loyalty has its limits. His move to speak out represents a dramatic betrayal of his former ally, and signals that the tides of power are shifting irreversibly. Legal experts have pointed out the extraordinary nature of this case. It is rare for such blatant disregard for financial transparency to be met with this level of public outrage and investigative scrutiny. Authorities are working around the clock, analyzing documents and conducting interviews to build what they describe as an airtight case against those involved. However, the ultimate question remains: will justice be served in time to salvage the reputation and functionality of a deeply shaken community? As the legal battle intensifies, attention is turning to the broader implications of the scandal. How was such blatant misuse of funds allowed to continue unchecked for so long? What oversight mechanisms failed? And who else might share responsibility? The unfolding case is not only an indictment of one leader and her inner circle, but also a sobering reflection on the vulnerabilities inherent in systems of power that prioritize personality over accountability. Freeman has reportedly started revealing critical information to authorities in exchange for leniency, painting a damning picture of the operation under Henyard's leadership. His revelations are unraveling what was once tightly controlled, shaking the very foundation of her administration. Predictably, Henyard is scrambling to deflect blame, claiming that Freeman was the architect of the questionable financial decisions. She paints herself as an inexperienced leader, unfamiliar with Dalton's governance processes, and alleges that she blindly followed Freeman's guidance. However, as more details come to light, it becomes increasingly difficult to sustain this narrative. And this is the downside. Keith Freeman, once the loyal right-hand man of Tiffany Henyard, had been the trusted deputy at the heart of her administration. However, his decision to cooperate with federal authorities has proven to be the critical turning point in what was once a well-orchestrated and seemingly impenetrable political empire. Freeman's revelations are unraveling a scandal that has now reached a boiling point, exposing lavish spending and corruption at the highest levels of government. Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, and once an untouchable figurehead, has watched as her carefully constructed image of leadership crumbles. At the heart of the scandal are her financial decisions, which were once cloaked in ambiguity. High-expend trips, expensive personal luxuries, and questionable use of public funds have all come under scrutiny. A 5-day trip to Austin, Texas, for example, is now exposed as an extravagant vacation charged to taxpayers under the guise of an official conference. Henyard's explanation for these lavish expenditures, pleading ignorance, seems increasingly implausible and desperate. This excuse, now widely dismissed, raises significant questions about her judgment and intentions. What was once perceived as a story of ambition and leadership now looks like a tale of reckless indulgence. The real intrigue, however, lies in the disintegration of Henyard's once ironclad political empire. Those who had been her most loyal allies during the height of her power are now reportedly turning against her. This has created a cascading effect, where former confidants and key players in her administration are distancing themselves from the fallout. Whispers are growing that others in her inner circle, many of whom may have also benefited from her time in office, are cooperating with investigators. This suggests that Freeman's revelations are only the beginning, and more damaging information could soon emerge. Freeman's cooperation with authorities is the spark that is igniting this crisis. As a key figure in Henyard's administration, Freeman had direct access to critical decisions, financial records, and transactions that are now central to the investigation. His credibility as a whistleblower is difficult to dismiss, given his role in the administration. Freeman's narrative sharply contradicts Henyard's attempts to deflect responsibility. Sources close to the investigation say that Freeman portrays Henyard as a micromanager, deeply involved in every major decision, including those surrounding personal trips disguised as official business, and questionable financial transactions that enrich only a select few. One of Freeman's most explosive claims centers on the misuse of public funds for personal enrichment. Early documents that have been released hint at extravagant spending patterns that, at first glance, seem excessive. However, the deeper issue lies in the systematic nature of these alleged misdeeds. It wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. Rather, the evidence suggests a consistent pattern of behavior in which funds meant for public infrastructure, social programs, and community initiatives were diverted to fund Henyard's personal luxuries. While projects were delayed, social services underfunded, and vital community programs sidelined, Henyard's spending ballooned under the guise of official business. The implications of Freeman's revelations are far-reaching, as insiders hint that a domino effect is underway. With Freeman as the first whistleblower, others are reportedly rushing to protect themselves by coming forward with their own information. The growing list of cooperating individuals is being seen as a treasure trove of actionable intelligence, each new whistleblower providing more corroborating evidence to strengthen the federal case. This makes the question of Henyard's culpability more urgent than ever, as investigators piece together a web of corruption and deceit. As the investigation intensifies, the bigger questions begin to emerge. How far does the corruption go? Will Henyard face criminal charges? Who else in her circle is implicated? The scandal is no longer just about Henyard, but about an entire administration that appears to have been compromised at its core. What's clear now is that Henyard's grip on power is weakening by the day, and the public is losing patience. The residents of Dalton are understandably angry and disillusioned. For years, they have watched their community stagnate. Roads are in disrepair, schools are underfunded, and basic services are deteriorating. Meanwhile, they are now discovering that their taxpayer dollars have been used to fund Henyard's lavish lifestyle. Public outcry has erupted, with protests and town hall meetings becoming forums for citizens to voice their frustration and demand accountability. As these demands grow louder, Henyard remains defiant, framing herself as the victim of a political attack. But this narrative is beginning to unravel as more details come to light. Henyard's attempts to shift the blame onto others are being met with increasing skepticism. Her public statements, designed to portray herself as an innocent bystander caught up in a codependency complex, are failing to resonate with the public. Even those who once supported her are questioning her leadership. The image of a defiant mayor, desperately trying to avoid responsibility, is stark against the backdrop of a collapsing administration. It's becoming clear that Henyard's strategy of passing the buck will no longer work. One of the most glaring aspects of the scandal is the overwhelming arrogance that Henyard has displayed. Despite facing serious accusations and an increasingly vocal public, she continues to act as if she is above reproach. While the people of Dalton grapple with crumbling infrastructure and rising crime rates, Henyard has been using her office to indulge in luxury and comfort. Expensive SUVs, $47,000 trips, and $25,000 credit card charges for personal items are just the tip of the iceberg. Her personal photographer, who was paid $3,400 to document the mayor's life, epitomizes her disregard for public funds. The most troubling part of all this is Henyard's inability to recognize the profound betrayal her actions represent. While Dalton residents are struggling, Henyard has been focused on maintaining her image as a public figure, surrounded by an entourage that has helped keep her in power. Freeman's revelations, however, have peeled back the curtain, revealing the true nature of her administration. The people of Dalton are no longer willing to accept her excuses. They are demanding answers, and they are demanding accountability. The rise of Henyard to power, too, warrants scrutiny. Before becoming mayor in 2021, Henyard had a history that raised red flags. In 2016, she was arrested for criminal trespassing to vehicles. A minor incident, perhaps, but one that hinted at a pattern of questionable behavior. Despite this, she successfully ran for mayor and became the first woman to hold the office in Dalton. She presented herself as a young, ambitious leader who would bring change to a struggling community. However, it seems that the change she brought was not for the betterment of Dalton, but for her own personal gain. Under Henyard's leadership, the financial situation in Dalton has deteriorated. The village is now burdened with millions of dollars in debt, largely due to Henyard's lavish spending and mismanagement. Essential services have been neglected, and the once vibrant community is now in a state of crisis. The village's coffers are nearly empty, with little to show for the millions in taxpayer money that have been spent. The situation has grown so dire that federal authorities are now investigating Henyard's activities in both Dalton and Thoron Township, where she also serves as a supervisor. Subpoenas have been served, and financial records are being scrutinized for evidence of corruption, fraud, and other illicit conduct. The FBI is closing in, and the evidence against Henyard is mounting. Another shocking aspect of the scandal is Henyard's use of the police force as a tool for her personal protection. The police budget has increased dramatically under her direction, with hundreds of thousands of dollars allocated to overtime pay for officers who were essentially acting as her bodyguards. At a time when Dalton's crime rate is rising and public safety is in jeopardy, the money meant for fighting crime has been diverted to protect Henyard's personal interests. Henyard has also been accused of using her position to retaliate against anyone who disagrees with her. She has replaced key allies with individuals who have their own questionable histories. One such individual is Liz Lacey, the deputy police chief, who has been accused of bankruptcy fraud. Despite these allegations, Lacey remains in a position of power within the administration, raising further concerns about Henyard's judgment and priorities. Perhaps most disturbing is how Henyard has used a charitable organization, ostensibly meant to help cancer patients, to fund her lavish lifestyle. Thousands of dollars intended for the less fortunate have been spent on food, accommodations, and other personal expenses. The charity, already under scrutiny for failing to file the necessary financial disclosures, has become yet another tool in Henyard's arsenal of corruption. As the pressure mounts, Henyard's response has been to double down, assaulting her critics and portraying herself as a victim. She accuses the media of spreading fake news and calls the investigation a political witch hunt. This is a classic tactic used by those trying to deflect blame and shift attention away from the real issues. However, it is not working. The people of Dalton are fed up, and even Henyard's closest supporters are turning against her. As more trustees question her decisions, vote to regulate the budgets for lavish events, and raise concerns about her spending, Henyard's position becomes increasingly untenable. Despite her attempts to downplay the severity of the situation, it is clear that her time in power is quickly running out. Legal action from the Illinois Attorney General's office is imminent, and an arrest warrant is reportedly in the works. As more and more people cooperate with federal authorities, Henyard's house of cards is starting to collapse. The question now is whether Henyard will face justice or find a way to avoid the consequences of her actions. Will she be able to navigate yet another scandal, or will her empire finally come crashing down? Only time will tell, but the people of Dalton are demanding answers. What do you think? Will Henyard face justice, or will she manage to escape once again? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.